Tuesday and
Who's recording it? There.
I know. Yeah.
All right. So, and I'm sure some people are gonna work their way in gradually. There we go. Thank you, Lydia. Hi, good morning.
Hey. Morning.
Okay, so to go back on what we finished from last week, we had talked about the economic model. And I said this is going to be really critical because it's going to fuel the conversations for everything moving forward. It's essentially the business plan model for your business. To be honest with you, this works for an individual's real estate business. This works for a team's real estate business. One of the things I shared from last week is that when you divide the seller side and buyer side transactions, that's actually what starts to educate teams on their growth, because the seller side tends to be the rainmaker listing agent for a team, and then they're hiring out agents to be the buyer's agents. So it really can start to dictate a lot of the behavior. It actually also, by the way, if you look at there of the real estate,
on Facebook and I just clicked on it.
Lydia, I'm gonna mute you.
Sorry.
It also actually is the fundamental economics of a real estate office, because the amount of listings and listing business that's taken dictates, it informs you about the health of a real estate office, because it's the market share that you're getting in the marketplace. So, and listings are predictable and buyers' sides are not. And we've seen that because we've seen a lot of people bottlenecking a bunch of business that they have with signed buyer agencies that they can't get to revenue, right? Does that feel familiar? As the market's balancing out, that's maybe not quite as drastic as it had been, but listings really tell you the health of your business. So all that leads to the next model, which is the lead generation model. Now, here's how these are related. What's the bottom line on each side of the buyer side and seller side of this slide?
How many appointments you need?
How many appointments you need? What do you need to get an appointment?
Lead.
The lead.
You need the leads, right? So the relationship between the economic model and the lead generation model is that without the leads, none of the rest of it matters. And Gary Keller actually has a quote I'm going to show you in a few moments, but essentially, without leads, there is no business. And so if you're looking at this screen, right, this is $1 million net income model on this board, right? This is just a straight up recipe. Like if you wanted to make casserole tonight, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make casserole. I'm going to pull the casserole recipe out. This is $1 million recipe right here. It doesn't mean you want to do it. It doesn't mean you want to have 333 seller appointments, 357 buyer appointments in a year, right? That's a choice. But this is literally the numbers that would educate you on what you're doing. So the upstream impact of these numbers is that you have to go upstream and say, okay, how many seller leads do I need to be able to set 333 appointments? And how many buyer side conversations do I need to have in order to have 357 buyer appointments? That's the half version, by the way. I'm going to show you this real quick. So at $500,000 net income, the numbers get much smaller. it's crazy to think about this, but like 137 seller appointments. With those conversion rates, which are lower than most of what agents are using, 130 seller appointments needed. That's really less than 3 a week. So $500,000 net is less than 3 seller appointments a week. And what happens is, by the way, when you're building out a large real estate business at scale, is if you hammer on the seller side, the buyer side actually falls into place pretty easily. Because the listings generate, if you took 73 sold listings. I'm sorry, yeah, if you took 40 sold listings, right? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong number. If you took 73 sold listings, okay, 73 sold listings and took 104 seller listings, if you had 100 listings, how many buyer leads could you generate off of 100 listings? At least 100, right? You would think at least 100, right? Because at least 1 lead per. So the crazy thing is that's why they say that's focusing on the seller side. That's what, not that they say, but that's actually why the math tells you. If you focus on listings, the business grows proportionally. It actually grows disproportionately good. Because if you generated 104 listings on this, right, which is that center line there, if you generated 104 seller listings, you're going to, just by doing that one thing, create enough buyer side opportunities that you can grow. There, that shows you 3 a week for sell side, 5 a week for buy side. Net generates you $500,000 net. Okay, so the lead generation model. If you want to follow along in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Red Book, 133 would be the place that you want to go. So from this section, at the beginning, I think this is the perfect introduction. As important as your economic model is, your lead generation model is just as important. Why? One relies upon the other. The two go hand in hand. Once you know how many appointments you must have, you have to generate the leads necessary to generate those appointments. And that's where the lead generation model comes in. Leads are the fuel to your economic engine. And here's the truth that you must never lose sight of. You can never have enough good leads. Okay. So he talks about the positioning battle. Now, this book was written in 2004. So this book was written in 2004. The world's gotten a little topsy-turvy since 2004, has it not? So this section talks about the 2002 NAR data of buyers and sellers and how they work with agents and all of that. This has actually gotten to be more important. There's something that I'm going to show you from a different screen about saturation, and essentially consumers we have to battle even more for this conversation of positioning in the market. And we actually have to change the approach to saturate their mind share. But mind share leads to market share. So in this game that we're playing of generating enough leads, we need to win mind share of our potential customers before we gain market share of the business itself. And what are the ways that we can generate mind share? What does that look like in a real world setting? What is mind share?
Social media posts.
Social media posts.
Just marketing in general.
Okay, we're going to talk about
Marketing
marketing.
yourself. Like making everybody know you're a real estate agent.
Making them know you're a real estate agent. What else? It's good. I mean, all correct. What else? I think that what you want.
Following up when you're SOI.
Yes, your sphere of influence. So I'm going to challenge you that this is a time where that saturation conversation is about how deep are the relationships that you have in your sphere. It's the word relationship, right? The word relationship, because this is a time when relationships become their own commodity, separate from leads. Okay. So if you look, 70 at this time, and actually this data has gotten even a smidge worse. 76% of sellers met with one agent. On the buy side, around 60% of buyers only interviewed one agent. So he who has the relationship and gets the first crack at an opportunity with somebody is usually going to get it, right? So you talked about SOI, right? What does that mean? What does it stand for?
Sphere of influence.
Okay.
And it means staying in touch with the past clients.
Yep.
And just to give you, like yesterday, I had a call from a client that I sold them a house like 15 years ago. And they want to do something else now. But they reached out to me rather than calling somebody else, you know, or the person that had the property listed.
Yeah,
So that was kind of good that,
it's kind of a lot good.
yeah, I mean, that many years. And we're not, like, we weren't friends. They were a call-in when we did phone duty back then.
Yeah,
So, you know what I mean? So, I mean, just from emails and marketing, they kept my name.
that's pretty awesome. So the challenge here is this actually is going to lead to page 137. So page 137 is going to be the page 137 is going to be, let me just make sure. Yep. It's going to be where we're going to look. So prospecting based, marketing enhanced. The reality is that for lead generation, and this bullseye looking thing is the lead generation model strategy. It is to move as many people inward in your database as you possibly can. And so for you, right, where did these people fall in the list of general public, haven't met, meaning the general world, target group haven't met group, and then allied resources?
Well, I had met them, but I haven't really like talked to them.
Have you done business with them?
Yeah, I did. I sold them a house
So
15 years ago.
So you've done business with them, so that's a one-on-one relationship.
Okay.
So you made it all the way to the center. But when you made it all the way to the center, did you stay there purposefully?
Probably not.
You lucked out a little bit, right?
Yeah. I
So-
mean, I haven't like knocked on a door and talked to them, I think, but I've kept them on my emails and social, or, you know, any kind of marketing that I've done, they're in command. So.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna talk about that, because when we talk about a prospecting based marketing enhanced, first we need to decide what is the definition of prospecting and what is the definition of marketing? Who wants to take a stab?
Prospecting, I would think it's when you go looking for business,
Okay,
like not door knocking, just talking to strangers, maybe. I don't know.
talking to strangers.
Like if you're out at a restaurant or a grocery store, you run into somebody, or even somebody you haven't talked to in a while, it might not be a stranger, but, and talking about real estate.
Mhm.
I don't know. Am I on the right?
You're on the right track.
Okay.
Prospecting seems more intentional.
Okay,
And marketing seems more brand promotion, name familiarization. That's how I see it.
You're-
The marketing part is laying out the plan for how you're going to continue to keep engaged those that you've prospected.
yes. So here's how I want you to think of this. This is critical. because this actually starts to separate you from accidentally keeping business or purposefully generating business. So prospecting gives you instant contact with the market and provides you with immediate feedback. Prospecting is you making contact with people, and marketing is people making contact with you. Let me read that again. Prospecting is you making contact with people, and marketing is people making contact with you. And once everybody writes that down, I'm going to give you the second piece of that. Prospecting is seeking, and marketing is attracting. This is where agents go awry all the time. Because here in this triangle, this pyramid, here's why. If I told you that I had something that you could do that would make you money, but it would take you a lot of work, a lot of time, and you'd have to be rejected a lot. How would you feel about that?
Not good. The rejection part.
Ooh, that's usually the thing. That's the thing. By the way, maybe I can get Dave to sneak in an MREA for you. So a lot of time, a lot of work, and you're gonna get rejected a lot. That's prospecting. I'm sorry, but that's really what it is. And so, and when I say rejection, we're gonna talk about that because there's a mindset component to this portion of the lead generation model. The lead generation model is not fancy, by the way. The model itself, the same way that the economic model wasn't all that fancy, it's just a lot of numbers. It's just a math equation. The lead generation model is actually less than that. But the critical thing is that you need to make sure that you're driving enough people into your lead generation funnel to fuel your economic model. And you need to be thinking both prospecting and marketing. So why does Gary say we need to have a prospecting based, marketing enhanced lead generation model? What does that mean? If you read that on the screen, what does that mean to you?
To me, that means go out and get it.
Yes. Go out and get it. Why?
Because it's immediate results and it's a personal deal.
Okay, so yes to that. And also there's a couple factors here. One is you are in control. So Karen says, once you have a prospect, then you need to market to them, and we'll talk about that. So the reality is that when you are prospecting to somebody, so prospecting is I call you. I said, hey, I wanted to reach out to you. I'm thinking of my bullseye here on page 137. You are currently in my met group, right? First you started in my haven't met group. We haven't even met yet. Now I need to move you towards being able to do business with you. So how am I advancing that relationship from somebody I haven't met, maybe even a potential stranger, right? So think about that. You have a neighborhood that you want to work in. You live in that neighborhood. So now you've upgraded from the general public to a target group because you're in that neighborhood, right? But we still haven't met. I want to do business in that neighborhood. I want to do business in general because I have to do 137 seller appointments or whatever that number was, right? So how do I do more than I did before? If I don't want to grow my business or I don't want to get any business, then I don't have to do any work. That's good news. The bad news is that doesn't pay the mortgage. So if I want to do more business, then I need to meet more people like you who live in that neighborhood that I want to do business in, right? Okay. So we look down, we say, we've upgraded you. Good news, you got a promotion. You went from general public to target group, haven't met. Okay. How do I have you move to my met group? What does it mean to met somebody, to meet somebody?
Go out and talk to them.
I got to talk to you,
So knock on doors, or people are out working in yards right now.
right? So Marketing is passive. So I could send you 47 postcards passively. I'll never feel the feeling of rejection because I won't know when you walk my postcard straight to the trash can. It doesn't hurt my feelings, right? It takes a long time because there's a process, and you can write this down. There's a process called indoctrination that has to happen with marketing. Name the top 2 soda companies that come to mind. Coke and Pepsi. Well, why do you know those names?
Because they're all over the place, advertising, TV, the grocery store. I mean, no matter where you go, you see Coke and Pepsi
Yeah.
products.
How much does it cost to be on the billboard in Times Square?
A lot. I have no idea how much, but I know a lot.
How much do you think?
$1 million.
$1 million. How
Like a
upset?
Super Bowl ad is-
Super Bowl ads, right?
is millions.
How upset would you be if I told you that you are off on the billboard and you are a fraction of the actual amount just to be on the billboard for 1 month?
Well, I wouldn't be upset, but.
It's crazy,
It
right?
doesn't affect me, but
How
yeah.
much does a Super Bowl ad cost?
They're like, some can be 3 million
Millions.
for 30-second ad.
So let me ask you, if you're Coca-Cola, which you guys just said those 2 names, if you're Coca-Cola and you're in the marketing department, not the prospecting department, the marketing department of Coca-Cola, and you say, we're going to spend $3 million, how many Coca-Cola bottles do they sell by way of that ad?
You'd have to sell a ton.
They would have to return a lot of money.
Yeah.
But how many, where's the button on the TV to buy a Coca-Cola bottle during
There
that
is none-
ad?
There is none.
There is none. There's
Yeah.
literally zero.
So you
So
don't
what
know.
are they seeking to get out of that ad?
Just
Brand
name it.
awareness.
Awareness, which is mind share,
Right.
which is what we were just talking about, right? Mind share leads to market share. So think about that. So Coca-Cola, yeah, Karen says top of mind. So Coca-Cola is playing at the top of this pyramid, very money intensive, passive, right? Because they're just putting an ad out there. You respond. If you don't respond, they sell no bottles of Coca-Cola. And it's long term because they need to go through the process of indoctrination. Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
So you live in my neighborhood that I want to do business in. I have 2 choices. I can market or I can prospect. Sorry, it's not fancier than that. There's just 2 choices. Okay? Now, I'm not Coca-Cola. So I have 2 choices on how I'm going to get to him. I can either market, put a billboard up on the entrance into the community, maybe run a radio ad. You guys know how much radio costs?
$200.
Couple $100 at the least. Good news, it's cheaper than TV. Bad news, it's not free.
No.
Okay, so I could run a radio ad that targets the whole area, but does that guarantee me I'm gonna get mind share in that neighborhood that I want to be in?
No.
No. How do my feelings react when I run a radio ad?
You don't have any.
No, I do.
Well, yeah, but
How-
nobody's coming back at you. It's not the immediate interaction.
So I don't have the rejection. But
Right.
what do I feel when I hear my radio ad? I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
I did something, right? I'm gonna get leads.
So you hope.
So I hope, maybe. That's the challenge. The trade-off between marketing and prospecting is marketing feeds a little bit more of the ego and protects our rejection buttons, but it's also passive, which means we don't control it. Like, I don't know when the next person is going to call me. It's not a direct, I turn this dial, I get this result. That's not how that works, right? With prospecting, it's a numbers game. It is a hard working, time intensive, active process to generate relationships with immediate results. Because if I go to the neighborhood and I say, I'm gonna walk my dog in that neighborhood every day and I'm gonna talk to minimum of 3 people every time. Okay. So if I talk to 3 people every time, if I walk my dog once a day in that neighborhood, how many people do I talk to in a 5-day period over the course of the work week?
15.
So how many conversations do I have the opportunity to have compared to running my radio ad in the entire town of York, New Salem, or wherever I run that radio ad? I have 15 more controlled opportunities. Now, I walk through the neighborhood, I have 15 conversations. And 15 out of 15 times I don't get a listing. How do I feel?
Rejected. Well, maybe not rejected, but.
A little weary. You're a little
Yeah.
weary. It's like, when does it happen?
Because I'm at the bottom of the pyramid. I'm in the active, time-intensive part of the process, right? And that's tough. Karen says, if you market to someone and then call them, they should hopefully recognize who you are. So we will talk about that, because that is hope, what she just said, they will hopefully. And unfortunately, that ends up being way further of a gap than you believe it is. And that's why it's prospecting based, marketing enhanced. If you flip that, and this is what Gary, I overheard Gary talking in the top 100 agents of Keller Williams. He does a mastermind every quarter with them. And basically you have to earn the right to get to be a marketing based, prospecting enhanced. So what Karen just put in the chat, and I'll read it because it's a valuable lesson, is that if you market to people, hopefully when you call them, they will remember you. That is the reverse. That is marketing enhanced, meaning you marketed to them first and then you prospected to them, right? So marketing based, prospecting enhanced, then I call them afterwards and hopefully they recognize me even more, right? So that the challenge there is the gap between your goals and the results that you actually get is much further, because you haven't necessarily developed a relationship with them. If you walk in the neighborhood and have 15 conversations and you feel that rejection of, oh my God, I've talked to 15 people and I didn't get a single listing out of my 1 week of work. But then you send a postcard that says, hey, I'm the guy that walks the dog. And they're like, I have a relationship. 15 people in that neighborhood will say, I have a relationship with him. And now he's marketed to me. I recognize that message. And it actually hits different. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It's the thing you need to hear, but don't want to hear. It's that work has to precede the money. The money intensive aspect of marketing. The good news is it's passive and you can avoid the rejection, and you will fight so hard to hold on to marketing, because the alternative is the work. It's the work and the rejection that comes with it. It's the work and rejection of having relationship-based conversations, moving people from the circle, the outer circle of the general public haven't met, and moving them in. Okay, that's the hard truth. So you haven't reached a point of saturation. How many touches, and we'll talk about this, but there's Harvard did a study of consumer behavior. And I'm a little deviating from some of the data in here because again, it's 2002. We have better data since then. So how many two-way interactions, collisions? There's a concept, Tony Hsieh, who started the company Zappos. He would call them collisions. How many collisions between a consumer and the company that they might do business with? How many does it take before they actually identify that that's their provider of that service or business?
Question, how many?
Karen says 56, which is more than it actually is. Thank God.
Well, I just think about myself when I go to buy something and I look at the company and I go, do I like any of their products? And if I like their products, probably I'll visit the site 2 or 3 more times before I actually spend my money there.
So I love that. What's your product?
Clothes and shoes.
No, what's your product in this building?
Oh, in this building, my product in my business, real estate. So when somebody's going to look at, so that's a good question. So when somebody's going to look at my website, what are they going there for?
Yeah.
So
That's the challenge that we have.
right.
Is because the product that the consumers are seeking isn't you.
Right, it's your service.
No, they're not even seeking that. They're seeking a product that is what? A house,
Oh,
right? Which
right.
meets a human need of shelter, right? So that there's this tribal primal thing driving that, right? So the challenge for us is that we are like, there's the motorcycle, we're in the sidecar. And we have to be attached to the thing that's really important to them. Now, we as agents, we provide a level of fiduciary and functional service to those people. And as long as we can create a relationship that attaches us as being a person who can provide a level of care and service to them, that's good. Our widget is relationships. The product that we sell at the end of the widget is a house. That is a thing you have to realize, because the consumer journey is different. In fact, the consumer journey, there's some good data. I did this in the shift class and I didn't want to pull up that whole slideshow out, but the consumer's not seeking agents first as often as they used to. What are they seeking? Where are they going?
Well, they're going online.
They're going online, right? In 2002, how big of a presence did Zillow have?
Well, was that when they first started?
They were little
Yeah.
babies at 2002, right? So that consumer journey is changing. It's changing. And so we have to be ahead of that digital journey, because if I don't have my relationship, because I walk my dog and have created an opportunity for us to move forward from haven't met target group to have met to now a one-on-one relationship. If I haven't done that and he goes online and clicks some random button, gone. Doesn't matter. I could have sent the best postcards to that neighborhood and it would not matter. My radio ad is playing for all of the people driving on their commute, and it doesn't matter because they got home and at midnight when they were thinking about how annoyed they were with the neighbor playing loud music and they're scrolling online and they accidentally click a button, the person that calls them at 9 o'clock in the morning is the person that's going to get the business, and my radio ad doesn't mean shit. That's the reality of the lead generation today. So the lead generation model has to be based on prospecting with marketing enhancement. Has to be. It's functionally not going to scale unless you have a tremendous amount, Coca-Cola level money, if you start with marketing and then fall back on prospecting. Yes.
So how many collisions?
What's that?
How many collisions?
How many collisions?
12?
So it's 7 two-way conversation collisions for follow-up if the consumer is in a relationship with you already. If you don't even know my name, it can be way more. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So do you have the money to send 21 postcards to a neighborhood and get 0 listings off of it? Because that's how many it could take.
Mhm.
You don't know. Like, at what point do you stop sending postcards? And if you send one and it doesn't work, did postcards not work, or did you just not give it a large enough sample size? Right? Feels weird. And again, it's like the thing that sucks about it is that there's no like easy button alternative. There is actually, to be honest with you, there is. What's the easy button alternative to lead generation right now?
Social media.
For leads.
No, what was that? No, it's social media still works. Social media is actually yes, Karen says it, buy leads. You said it, buy leads. Okay, cool. How much does realtor.com charge now?
$300 and some for a non-shared.
Just to have a spot.
Yeah, out of spot. So like I do realtor.com, I have for years. And that's what I'm paying, and I'm guaranteed like 45 leads out that one area of the Hanover zip code.
So realtors moving to the referral where they want to split off of the deal. Now,
No.
some spots, some small
They
demographics.
did change to Op City,
Yes,
and now
Yeah.
they're going back to the way they used to do it.
Well, for God's sakes, the way they ran Up City, who could
Right.
do that.
Because I did realtor.com for like 3 years and then they switched Op City
Mhm.
and now they have come back to realtor.com.
So some of that's happening in that's not in every market. But if they're charging 35% on a commission.
Mhm.
let's
Yeah,
just-
I, with my previous brokerage had Op City leads and they weren't, I mean, they were terrible.
Yeah.
And they took up to like 40-45%.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do some quick math.
Yeah, it's
Quick
terrible.
math. You put the easy button for lead generation. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it's very, very relevant. And when you hear the math at the end, you're gonna be like, oh, I get it now. One deal, a $300,000 listing that you get from Op City. And let's just say for easy math, you pay a 33% referral. A $300,000 property, the commission on that is $9,000. If you're paying a 30% referral, how much did you pay? $3,000. What's your hourly rate? Zero. I mean, zero until you make money.
Right.
Okay, so let's just say that your hourly rate was $100 an hour. How many hours of lead prospecting could you have done for the same cost as the easy button? 30 hours. You could have worked an entire week at $100 an hour for the same price that you paid to accept it. How many times could I have peppered the shit out of your neighborhood, right? Door knocking, calling, walking my dog. My dog's gonna be dragging behind me when I'm walking so often. I have a bulldog. He wouldn't even make one lap, right? So like real talk. Does that put it in perspective? We will fight so hard to not have the rejection and not have those feelings of that hard work that we will wipe a week's worth of $100 an hour pay right off the table to do it. So hopefully that made you think differently. Prospecting based, marketing enhanced. Now you see that I have a second book here. So Fran, what I was saying is that if you sold one, the math is this: if you sold one listing from Op City, it's a $300,000 listing with a $9,000 GCI, and you paid them a 30% referral. If you were paying yourself $100 an hour, you could have worked for 30 hours doing prospecting work for the same price as clicking that button and accepting that lead. Now, I'm not saying to throw that away, because in the yes, so Karen's saying it's a good supplement. So I'm not saying to completely throw it away, but what I am saying is that if you make that your bottom of your foundation, if you put that at the bottom of the pyramid of lead generation, you are building it on a faulty foundation because it's so unscalable. You'll reach a point, if you do 10 of those deals a year, $30,000, you could have hired an entire assistant to scale your business. And for 10 deals a year to scale that business, how much more value could you have gotten from an assistant doing an entire whole amount of work, right? So you just can't rely on it, okay? Mathematically, it doesn't work. So in the top 100 group, what Gary basically says is you have to reach a tipping point where you are financially viable to start to flip to a marketing-based prospecting enhanced. But that also requires that you have a tremendous amount of mind share in advance. So that mind share battle, like if you don't have probably 2, 3, 4, 500 people in your inner circle of your VIPs, if you don't have that level of business where you can make a one-to-one call to those people and have them answer and have a quality forward conversation, if you're not at that level, you probably haven't earned it, the ability to roll back and drop marketing dollars. And if you don't believe me, then I'll share with you some inner workings of what happens over at Liz Hamburger's team, right? So she did 35 deals last month, 35 deals last month. Okay. The marketing budget there is $110,000 a month. Okay. That's the cost. It costs us $500 to have an appointment. Right? So if you want to play the money game, that's what it costs. Now, they're a marketing-based, prospecting enhanced model. They spend their money and they're enhanced by prospecting. Then they have people that do the dialing on top of the money that they spent. Their number one lead source is TV. TV is great, it has one of the best conversion rates. Big disadvantage to TV, costs a lot of money. It's $40,000 a month just for that source. But it has a good ROI, so they do it, and it gives them scalability. These are the things that's the trade-off, right? So she's reached that kind of tipping point where there's enough people and there's enough scale and enough brand awareness that they can do that, and they can run that $100,000 a month play as long as the math works, as long as they need to. Make sense? But that's not a swimming pool we can all swim in
Mhm.
at all. Like, right?
Right.
So this other book that I have is the Shift book. And I'm holding this because tactic 4 is worth a revisit for the lead generation model, because this is the find the motivated lead generation section. And so I just want to point out that some of the graphs that are in the MREA are also in Shift. So we're gonna, like, I just encourage you to dip back into the Shift book, because there's really, really good material there. So here's the rule of 4. I say this, I speak a lot to real estate investors. Real estate investors have too much money. Just frankly, they have enough money that they can make mistakes and hide poor tactics in their money. And so one of the things that often happens with real estate investors is they have some level of success with a lead generation, couple of sources, and then they're like, well, cool, I'm gonna grow my business, so I'm just gonna spend more money and I'm gonna go wider. And that's actually a pretty significant mistake, unless you're at market capacity. But statistically speaking, 82% of the business in real estate comes from the top 4 lead sources or less. Okay, one of the things I say to investors is build a stool. Who would feel really good sitting on a 2-legged stool? Not so great. Doesn't feel too stable. A 3-legged stool, maybe, right? 4-legged stool. That's where we want to be. We want to be stable. We want to be stable. The other thing, think about this, Op City, right? So Karen made that point, right? She was saying that you were saying that like realtor.com, like a source like that, it can be a viable source, right? How would you feel if you, and no emotional attachment to anybody's answers here. How would you feel if you're paying $300 a spot for realtor.com every month? Costs you $300 a month. And then let's just say they're 20% of your business at $300 a month. Okay, cool. $3,600 a year. I just know it's gone, right? Okay. Then they come along and they say, hey, we're changing our business model. And so your business model needs to change as well. And now instead of it being $300 a month, it's 35% of every deal that you close from us. And now 20% of your business, right, suddenly became 35% less valuable. Now, I watched that happen with one of the teams that I coached as a MAPS coach, and it was financially an incredibly devastating thing that happened to them. Because we're talking at a company that's running at, let's just even use smaller numbers. Their numbers were bigger than this. Let's say you're running at $300,000 gross commission a year, and 60% of your business is relying on that source. And that now goes down by 30%. You're talking about 2 salaries of your assistants gone with the same amount of business. You could literally wake up tomorrow and your business just became that much less valuable from a cash flow perspective. That is the danger when your business model relies on their business model. So having 4 sources. Now, here's what I teach the investors, and this is what I'll tell you. You need to have a balance. You have to have something that's prospecting focused in those top 4. You have to have something that's prospecting focused in those top 4. Because if you don't, so remember, go back to the triangle. With prospecting, you control the activity, right? And you get immediate results. Marketing is longer results. You have to have prospecting in here because if something changes in the market conditions or you need more business, you can control it and it happens shorter time frame. If everything you're doing is on a long timeline, it doesn't, like, you can't pivot. It's like turning the Titanic on a dime. It doesn't happen, right? So if you don't have something that's prospecting, very heavily prospecting focused, you are very vulnerable. Not to mention vulnerable from any changes in business. Okay, this is take a picture of this. In fact, if anybody wants to make me super happy and make Ryan really happy, take a picture and post it on social media and say that you're in this class and we are having a conversation about lead generation that's changing your business, because this picture will change your business. This is the database model of the lead generation model. This is it. Get that thing on social media. Because here's the reality. At the top of the funnel, right, is, and it, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm not. You gotta hear it. It says both prospecting and marketing, hunting and fishing are both at the top. You got to do both. You drop them into your database. They come into the database. Then they become leads and move to contacts, right? Whatever your definition of lead and contact, you have to have one. So we reversed this definition in our CRM. A contact is somebody that we have not actually qualified, and a lead is. So that way,
That's how it should be.
right? So you can go either way, because here's what happens. Who's ever done Facebook advertising? When Facebook delivers a name and an email address to you, what do they call it?
A lead.
Is
don't
it?
They call it a lead.
They call it a lead. Is it a lead?
No, it's just a name and
It's a contact.
it's a contact.
We have no idea what it is.
Right.
You know how most of those autofill forms work is that it saves the initial login information from when you set your Facebook up of the original email address and some random phone number that you use so that Facebook would not have your real phone number. And then when you go in, if you accidentally hit, you might not even know you did it, where you accidentally submitted a form on on a Facebook ad, right? That is what Facebook sells to you at $2 a pop and calls a lead. Okay. Now, if you do have a two-way conversation, it does happen to be somebody who purposefully actually wanted to be in contact with you and maybe do business with you. You got to form that relationship and then strengthen that relationship, right? So this right here, moving down the funnel, all of this is about developing relationship, and this is conversion. This is conversion. So if you're in the shift book, right, it goes capture, connect, close. And in the middle is connect is the conversion process. So if you're thinking of that, and on the left-hand side here, it shows the top is lead generation. This is relationship management. What does CRM stand for? Right? Command is a CRM. It's actually that's platform, right? But there's a CRM component of it. There's a ton of CRMs, Follow Up Boss, Brevity, any of those. What does CRM stand for?
Clients.
Is it client retention management or
Client relationship management or customer relationship management. So it's customer relationship management tool, right? So that's what's happening there. And in here, it's like, once they've come in, if you don't have all of the contact information, you don't have a complete lead. So if I meet you in the neighborhood, I'm walking my dog, I have, Quincy dragging his ass behind me, right? And I see you and I get your name. Do I have a lead?
Now, if you don't have an email address,
So go back here. Do I have the ability to do a 33 touch with him.
No, because you have to have
No.
email and phone number.
Right, address, all the
Yeah.
things, right? So
You can do 33 with email and phone number.
you can get pretty darn
Mhm.
close, and maybe make one of your touches, hey, I don't have an accurate address for you to realize, call him, right? Like, that's the type of stuff you can do that then lets you actually move this down. So one of the things, and this was created and printed in 2020, and one of the things I think that's really critical here is that they've upped the bar at the bottom in terms of preparing your contacts for conversion. They say that you need to have an interactive and needs-based offering. Now, I coach somebody who does well with recipe cards. And so for that reason, I don't pick on recipe cards as much anymore, but I used to pick on recipe cards. So I will pretend that the old version of me is still picking on recipe cards and it's not the current version of me picking on recipe cards. But recipe cards, some of those simple things that we pretended were touches that added value, are they a needs-based offering? No. If we know that somebody is potentially going to buy and we plug them in to Command and they have an interactive portal that they can use and they can like things, that's a needs-based item, right? Does that make sense? It's relevant to them. It's helping to solidify our relationship and it's actually meeting a need that they have. How do you know what the need is of somebody who's somewhere between a stranger and somebody that you've met? How do you know what their needs are?
You
Wait.
don't unless you talk to them.
Right.
You don't unless you talk to them. That's the best answer you could have given. So how do you do that? What are you asking them? What's the conversation like?
That's kind of where I get stuck sometimes, like, how do you start that conversation with a total stranger?
How do you start that conversation with a total stranger? I can,
Like, if I'm walking through my neighborhood
uh-huh,
and I've done this a couple times, like at Easter, just introduce myself, handed out some Easter candy and whatever. But then, like, after I introduce myself and stuff, like, how do you get to that like, they say, don't talk real estate right away.
don't talk real estate.
So where do you bring that into the conversation later?
You bring it in way later. And let me, there's something you can write down here. This is what we teach over with my sales training. Earn the right. So we can have like a brief detour on sales conversation because it will pay off for you. And I'm gonna leave this on the screen while we do that conversation. So if we meet and I know who you are, what's important to you and what you want, then I earn the right to have the next levels of conversation in terms of how it would look for us to do business together. If I start to have the conversation around how we would have business together and I don't know those other things, I've completely disrespected you.
So what is it again? Meet? What were the?
So first you meet somebody, right? Which is actually just part of the lead generation
Right.
funnel, right? And then you understand who they are, what's important to them, and what they want. And I'm gonna literally give you the recipe. I'm gonna give you the casserole recipe of how to do that. So who they are, what's important to them, and what they want. That lets you earn the right to know what kind of business they want and if you should be in business together, okay? So separate those two components. So the casserole recipe is this, the 6 connecting questions. And I'll give them to you. Who they are. So who, what, when, where, how, and why. And you can put a little dividing column there, and next to that is Ford. So if you use Ford to create a common connection, so family, occupation, recreation, and dream, board, family, occupation, recreation, and dream. If you use those topics and the 6 connecting questions. So let me paint the picture for you. I meet you in the neighborhood. We're gonna keep going back. It's so easy, right? I meet you in the neighborhood. Hey, I'm Joe. We keep running into each other and I feel embarrassed. We haven't actually met. I'm Joe.
Hey, I'm Dave.
Dave, pleasure to meet you. Dave, how long have you been in the neighborhood?
Oh, man, like 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you the mayor here? Like,
Yeah,
what's going on?
almost.
Yeah. What do you like about the neighborhood?
I would like it because it had a lot of young kids and great for families. Now my kids are grown now, so,
Okay.
but yeah.
So no more kids in the house anymore?
No more kids in the house, nope, empty nesters.
Okay, okay. Empty nesters. You have significant other?
Yeah, and my wife.
Your
yeah.
wife? What's I haven't seen her out.
Her
What's her
name's
name?
Lynn.
Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Dave and Lynn. Cool. And you said 24 years here.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. If you didn't live here, where would you move?
Where would I move? I don't know.
No? You just, oh, do I just need to like make sure I watch out in the backyard? You're gonna get buried back here? What's going on?
Maybe, I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't really thought about it yet.
Yeah, okay.
Probably, I'd say in the New York area.
In the York, okay.
Yeah.
So Dave, are you guys taking any vacations this summer? Like,
Yeah, and
No.
Outer Banks.
oh, really? You go there often?
Nope.
No? First time going?
First time going Outer Banks.
Oh my gosh,
Usually go to Myrtle.
you do? I'm actually going to Myrtle in July.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, what's your favorite restaurant to go to in Myrtle?
Sea Captain's house.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
It's right on the ocean, good seafood,
Yeah?
fresh seafood.
How long you been going to Myrtle and why'd you switch?
We're going to Myrtle for over 25 years. We didn't go every year, but just, I don't know, want to switch it up.
Wanted to go try
Yeah.
somewhere new?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Do you think you'd ever retire down to one of those spots or what are you thinking?
Nah,
No?
No.
You want to retire here? Or you're not gonna retire, you're just gonna get buried in the backyard?
I'll be buried in the backyard.
Okay, all right, okay. So how much information do I have?
Tons.
Did you hear me, by the
You
way?
don't have a phone number, email,
I don't.
but you know a lot about.
But
him.
I know a lot about him. And by the way, in showing him that I care about him, now if I want to say, hey, Dave, you know what? I see you walking around in the neighborhood all the time. If I wanted to grab your number to text you or reach out to you, maybe potentially if there was ever anything going on in the community, 'cause sometimes I run like community events here or I sometimes I'm like sponsor through my company. I'm part of Keller Williams. Don't worry about that. But sometimes we do some community engagement stuff. If I wanted to reach out to you, since you've been here for 24 years, you probably know a ton of people. If I could get your number, would you be opposed to that? As long as I don't spam you or anything?
No, it'll be fine.
Okay, done. Did that require any superpowers? It required one thing,
Asking.
curiosity.
Yeah. But
Right?
you set it up
What's that?
and you set it up.
I did.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I earned the right. And then, by the way, he knows where I work now. Just casually.
Well, you know, a lot of
Don't
time,
worry about, you don't worry about
a
that.
lot of time in the conversation, the person will ask you, what do you do?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. I didn't even give him a chance to ask me anything, so I was too busy drilling down for information, right? But like, I just showed you in 4 minutes of role play, maybe not even that, how, and did that feel, it was fast, but did it feel interrogative or did it feel like a real conversation between two adults?
It's like a conversation between two adults who just met,
Yeah,
get to know each other.
that's right. So tonality helps there, right? You can't be like, so Dave, you can't like set up with like, so tell me what, how many bedrooms do you have in your bed? Right? Like, that's not what I'm not looking for that stuff.
Right.
I want to know who he is, what's going on, right? And if you heard,
That he's never moving.
right.
So forget about it.
Which, so, and I,
He's
but
dying in the
does
house.
that information help me?
Yeah, it does actually.
It does actually help me.
Yeah.
And by the way, somebody who's lived in a community for 24 years,
Knows a lot
he's not
about
my guy, but he is my guy in another way,
Right.
right?
Because he knows a lot of.
Because he
people.
knows a lot of people,
Right.
right? So,
Well, and the empty nest thing with kids,
Yeah, so.
So my kids could be clients.
Absolutely. Did you hear in that the who?
Well, who is he and his wife?
It was, but I also learned about the kids.
Mhm.
And I could dive in there, like, oh, you know, they stay local, they move like far away, you know, what's going on there? I got the when,
Never,
never. Also the when historically, 24 years, right?
yeah.
I got the where. I also dipped into the where of Ford. Because when you're talking recreation and dreams,
Right.
I teed up from the summer. So like, hey, where are you going? Oh, I go there. Okay, how long have you been going there? Right? So I'm like dipping into those things because for him, like I'm trying to understand what's important to him, what are his patterns, who is he, and what does he want? Right? The questions that I had you write down, like you'll learn that stuff by asking questions. Now, I earned the right to get his contact information. I have definitely not earned the right to do business with him yet, right? But through, and I'm just gonna use the word indoctrination, I'm not talking about a cult, I'm talking about relationship development, but from indoctrination, from empathy, caring about him, learning about him, and being able to provide, because if you go back to that previous slide, right? Needs-based offerings, right? It's 24 years in the community. And I know that he doesn't want to move out of the area, but I know that he knows the area and he likes to vacation to either Myrtle Beach and he's going to try the new spot. Now, I might, maybe through the next time I see him, I say, hey, when do you leave for the Outer Banks? A, I proved to him I was listening, and B, I find out. Then I can check back with him when he gets back. How was the trip? What do you think? You're going to go back to Myrtle Beach? You're going to stay there, right? Now it's value-based conversation, not just a recipe card. Because I have the information that allows me to do that. By the way, where do I store that stuff that I just found out?
Command.
In Command, in a CRM, right? Because that's the relationship management tool that we have. I'm not a command like hardliner. I'm not here to hard sell it. We used Follow Up Boss for years. I think Follow Up Boss is one of the most functionally user-friendly CRMs, but I also don't want to spend $1,200 I don't need to spend. Right? And I think Command has caught up to the point where it's at the level that you'd want to have. So, and by the way, Command's going to have AI in it. It's already starting to have it. It's going to have it even more and more because it's built as a foundational platform, not as a bolt-on. Where the bolt-ons are going to have a hard time is like you can't put AI through the whole platform. But because Command is built as an entire platform, top to bottom, they'll be able to do it pretty easily. And imagine if I put Dave in there, say, Dave, I told you I worked for Keller Williams. I'm not gonna sell you a thing. But if you'd like, I can put you on to a drip campaign for Myrtle. And if you ever want to get like a second house down there or something, you can just browse it. And if the AI watches Dave's patterns and sees that he starts to uptick his activity or looking in a specific neighborhood, it might yellow flag him to me and say, hey, Dave's picked up his activities, might be a consumer here in the next couple of months. That's where AI is going to head. Wild, right? The flip side of that is you can't be lazy. You can't rely on that to make up for you not having a good enough relationship. So this is saturation relationship. Not a terrible thing to also take a picture of because this gives you some ideas of touch campaigns. It used to be 12 direct to connect, 12 direct to connect. That's now 19 to connect. That's to even get to the point where we've met, where we truly have a valued relationship, okay? $19 to connect. 1 to cement, a high value touch that solidifies the relationship and opens it up. I would tell you that at that point, you've moved into the met and you're earning the right to have an allied one-to-one relationship. And then saturate of convert, that is, now we're in a relationship and now I'm just maintaining that relationship. Is that helpful to see that?
Mhm.
That's a lead generation model. You can have a different plan for each of the lead sources that you've got. You can have a different plan for different demographics. You want to hear a wild one for a lead generation model? One of the MAPS coaching clients that I had, I've shared this story before, it's a game changer for when you think about it this way. So when we did the list of all of our lead sources, one of the ones that was a sleeper was agent to agent referrals. And she built plans, action plans for agents. And when she would come back from any class like this, or mega camp, or family reunion, she would send that information out. It was the value add that she was offering. Whenever she was going to one of those events, she would send out a note and say, hey, I have a couple spots for coffee if anybody wants to grab a coffee with me. So she was intentionally doing it, generated like $250,000 in GCI from agent to agent referrals and had a specific plan around it. It was part of her lead generation model. Morning, follow the TCPA. So I think this is, it's a real thing, and you do have to be, obviously you have to be very careful about the calling and the texting. There's litigation going on, like real talk, there's litigation going on around this. So just be very careful. But did you hear in my interaction with Dave, my neighbor who now I see when I walk the dog, like I earn the right, I get that explicit buy-in. If he gives me the number, I don't have to worry about that. The challenge is that sometimes it takes a lot of work to do that. And we jump to buying a list of 2,000 phone numbers of homeowners and we do the thing with those and we don't scrub it. We're not careful about it. We're not following those rules. So just be very careful about that type of stuff.
Yeah, I followed up on an expired for a buyer. And you know what? I just put their name in to a search and got a phone number and called the phone number, and it was that woman. And she was like, how did you get my number? And I said, I put you in on a search. She said, that easy? I said, yeah, that easy. She says, I have do not call. I said, it didn't come up anywhere, do not call.
Yeah.
It just, you came up. So I called you.
And what did she say?
She was fine because I had a buying client that wanted to look at her house, so she was cool with it, but
Yeah.
she didn't go any farther with a complaint against me because I said, listen, I've got a client that's interested.
Yeah. Hey, here's something to pay attention to. There's two do not call lists. There's a state list and a federal list. The federal do not call is fairly straightforward. The state is separate. Just because they're on one doesn't mean they're on the other. So make sure that you're scrubbing against both. Okay.
Where do we access that?
So actually through the market centers, and I actually found, so Karen and Fran, something that you guys can check. Actually, some of the realtor associations have links to those things. Like we have those, those things that we pay all that money for as agents. Some of those resources are in those spots, but within the market center, we could potentially even, I can ask Rachel if she would be willing to share, but there's databases that we have access to that type of stuff too. So this is a lead generation model exercise you can do. So if you're seeing at the top, it says contacts needed to achieve the goal of my economic model. So who is willing to share their economic model? How many appointments they need to go on total?
Do you want for both sides?
Yeah, just do seller side.
I put 105 appointments. And
105.
That's having 50% sellers, 50% buyers.
Okay, so around 50 listing appointments.
Well, no, 105
105 listing appointments.
listing appointments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're doing 105 listing appointments, the question then would be, how many contacts would you need on a 1 to 7 or 1 to 10 ratio? That number is gonna be tough to know until you have data to have that. So how many contacts would you need to have to be able to farm to get 105 appointments?
Isn't it more like 1,000?
Like 700.
Be about 700, yeah.
Okay.
If you're going off of a 7 to 1,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
Now, with that being said, you can lead generate directly into that funnel as well. So that's your cultivate bucket, but when you do your 4 lead sources, you might say, okay, I'm gonna get 30 of those opportunities are gonna come from my database. 30 of those are gonna come from realtor.com or whatever other lead source that you might have that is a funnel directly in. And then 30 are gonna come from direct mail. And so you might actually, you're gonna separate those 100 out and figure out where those contacts are gonna come from. And that will help educate you on the lead generation model, and you'll know where you need to put energy. So if you were gonna do 7 to 1 for all of them, you need to have 700 people in your database. But if you want to do 7 to 1 and you only wanted 25 to come from 25 is not any number. If you wanted 20 to come from your database, then you would maybe need to only have a couple of 100 people in the database, 200 we'll say, and then you would, and then you'd be able to figure out, okay, well, cool. Well, then if my other lead source is, what's another lead source you have? Open houses.
Okay.
I'll give you open houses, right? So open houses. So if I want 20 opportunities to come from open houses, then how many contacts do I need to generate from open houses? Let's just say that if you wanted for 1 to 4, you wanted 25% of the people that come through the door of an open house to turn into somebody that's going to be an opportunity. Well, that tells you if you want 20 listings to come from open houses and you have a 1 to 4 rate, you need to have 80 contacts from open houses. How many open houses do you need to do to get to that? You see? But these conversion rates, this math will actually educate what you need to do. That is what this workshop will allow you to do. And it will also tell you what do you need to do every day from that perspective. The other thing that people get hung up on is the actual content to use, right? You go into command, there's playbooks upon playbooks. So in command, there's something like under connect, all the education stuff is now synced in. That's done within the last 2 months. It's a completely different world in command. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to go into command and show you some of what's available in there, but you can go in and pull like, oh, what kind of promotional items do I want to do? Or when am I going to have an event or whatever? Like, I think one of the things that's cool is, with Ryan, like we're doing like the Juneteenth, or we just did Red Day, like those things that are happening within the office that might just seem kind of mundane. You could still like take a picture of yourself doing Red Day and send that out to your database. And that all of a sudden is a super easy, harmless touch, right? Okay. So I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to show you the other thing that I have. Anybody have any questions from anything that we've covered so far? All right. So I'm going to go into command and screen share that for a couple things. So y'all can see into my command, right? So this is my agent command. And a couple things that I want you to know, because this is really this is your lead generation model. It can be done directly within command. So if you go into your goals up here and you go into goals settings, you can set all your goals. You can set all your goals directly in command. And you can then, so like, let's just say like, I put all these numbers in for an exercise I was doing before. So then you can continue forward from there and you can put all your conversion rates in there. So if your conversion rate from lead to contact to appointment set, you see all those on the side here, lead, people who have shown interest in the services you offer but haven't engaged in a two-way conversation. Contact, lead that you've had a two-way conversation with. So they, again, in my mind, I reverse that. I'm not going to get hung up on the weeds of that, but they've defined it that a contact is somebody you had a two-way conversation with. Okay. And then you've set appointments. So we're putting those at 5% and then 75, 75, 75, down to 75. So you see all those conversion rates then help to determine what's happening from your business. And then everything, like you say, you know, what percentage of your business you want to be listings versus buyers, average commission, you put all those things in, and then it sets the goals for you. Have you guys ever tinkered with this? You have. Definitely do this. It's so easy because it like does a lot of the math for you. I was going to tell you that to start with because then you skip all the rest of the class. But it does a lot of the math for you. And it also teaches you like kind of what you need at the top for leads. Then when you have that conversation that we just had, like, okay, I want leads from open houses. Well, how many open houses do you need to do in order to generate the leads that you need from that lead source, right? You don't know until you do that math, okay? Because maybe you only need to do one open house every other week, or maybe you need to do 2 open houses every single week from now until September. Like, I don't know, but the numbers will tell you. So that's the one thing I wanted to show you. And then the other thing is under Connect, this is what I'm talking about. Look, right there, the very first thing, lead generation. Learn more. I want to learn more about lead generation. And then here's all sorts of content for you that will help you from a lead generation perspective. 12, all these topics, right? Yep. So right at the top. So Connect used to be this like very hard to use system. This is a complete game changer. So you can go in, so like lead generation conversions, MREA, and over here, these are quick links. Build $100,000 pipe. This is a free class. There's playbooks. Let me show you the playbooks. So there are playbooks for, this is gold. Database assessment playbook, ISA model, right? I'm not saying you want to build an ISA department. ISA stands for Inside Sales Associate. So if you have people that were cold calling for your team, like I used to have a team that they hired 4 cold callers and they were just dialing for them, okay? I'm not saying you want to do that, but if you want to have conversations like he and I just had, it wouldn't hurt you to look at the playbook and learn how to have those language skills to meet people by phone conversations. Online leads, seminars, social media, open houses, right? We were just talking open houses. Cool. Here's the playbook. Welcome to Open House Playbook. Grow your business through the open house model. Picking the house, creating the marketing materials, marketing the open house, all the ways to do it, getting ready to host it, getting your signs out, hosting it, how to have a follow-up. There's a sample script. Is that helpful? This is like awesome, right? And were you saying that you didn't even know this was in here?
I didn't know Connect. I didn't know all that was in there now.
Yeah, this is, and the playbooks are new. Like these are just uploaded. This was just uploaded in May.
Well, we got some of the playbooks because we went to that George Kelly.
Yes, some of them started to come out.
Yeah.
But like this one, the ISA one just came out May 31st.
I was gonna say.
The database one just came out May 23rd. It's good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So to move from the economic model to the lead generation model, this is really where you go from business planning to business action. And this is where the leads come from to support all the revenue. So, you know, I hope this was good to think about it. It's not actually a really fundamentally heavy hitting section of the book. There's a few things. So if you remember, this is actually the version in the book of the picture that I showed you guys. Okay, so like I wanted to go with more of the modern stuff that was available for us. There's also some samples of 8x8 and 33 touch. I showed you a 12 or whether that's 19 to connect and 36 to convert. So those things are in there. And I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of that. Any questions on any of this?
This is good to remember.
That is good.
This is good to remember.
I'm in it, something from page 219. So this is, I always like to think like, what's the biggest obstacle to worry about? So the biggest obstacle for leads on implementing the models, these 4 things at the top, I think if you can think of, yeah, you're welcome, thank you. I think if you can think of the way that you can protect your systems from these pitfalls, you're gonna put yourself ahead. So 1, sustaining a solid lead generation program that emphasizes marketing and consistently increases the number of leads. Tracking and converting your leads, protecting your lead generation focus time, and weighing your options, the process of discovering what works and doesn't work. That last one, by the way, like when you do the real math on what works and what doesn't work, like my coaching client, she would have never known the lead into agents if she didn't realize that the math made that make sense. And if you're doing activities, like I've seen people doing giveaways or client events, but they're not doing it in a way that's actually generating them leads. That is like the ultimate don't mistake movement for achievement bold law, right? They're like doing the movement, but they're not achieving what they think they're achieving. So doing that audit of your results is super helpful. So that's all I have from this. Stop the screen share. Does anybody have any questions or anything that I can answer or help out with? What do you think?
I think the classes are helpful.
They're helpful? Doug, what are your thoughts?
I just go back to what Gary always says. The leads, your database is your fuel tank. If you don't have anything in it, you're not gonna get anywhere.
That's right. That's right. Doug's done a really great job of leaning into direct mail, right?
Yeah, in fact, our new agent who just started 3 weeks ago, she grabbed the bull by the horns and you know, we just did a quick walkthrough of how to create postcards and do direct mail. And sure enough, she sent out a batch and she got a lead from it right away. A buyer's lead for a $360,000 home.
That's awesome.
Right out of the gate.
That's awesome. Yep. So direct mail is an interesting one because mail is where prospecting and marketing collide. The material, the message that goes on the postcard is a marketing component, but you're also targeting your demographic. So you have the ability to target the demographic like a prospecting activity, right? Like I could send my mail directly to his house, right? And that's a prospecting action, but the marketing component is that whatever's on that postcard has to be compelling enough that he calls me. Okay, cool. Anything else? Any other takeaways? We are right at 11 o'clock. So I appreciate everybody coming back for more. And I'll let you all enjoy the rest of your day. And next week we do the budget model. Dun, dun, dun. Money.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you hopping in.
That's what
The budget model.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good. All right.
I will be here.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it.